So you might not have heard, you might not have seen when you were registering, they've put together a book that outlines the current state of affairs on IoT in Australia, and there are all copies available for you. To talk about the book, I'd like to invite on stage the authors of that book. So from the University of Sydney's Business School, David Goad, and with David is Stephen J.K. Parker, APAC General Manager for Elements.cloud.
Yeah, clapping's okay. Yeah?
So thank you very much. We realize that we are the last presentation before lunch, so we're going to try and keep it relatively quick. We're here to try to describe to you why you want to read this book. So you guys have all been flipping through it. I noticed you've been all going through the agenda at the front there. So why do you want to read this book aside from reading it for the agenda or using it for the agenda? Well, I think really what it comes down to for me is if you listen to all the presentations earlier today, right, they were talking about all this disruption, all this change, all these things that were going to go on as a result of IoT. They were setting the stage for what we're talking about in this book, okay? So they're talking about all these different changes that businesses, both the companies that are actually deploying IoT and the companies that will be using IoT that are going through, right? How do you deal with those changes? What is the strategy? What is your business model? How are you going to organize your operations to handle that? Now, if I can actually click this thing through. So this is what we wrote the book. We wrote the book to help businesses address these challenges, to understand and try to figure out their strategy that they wanted to use with regards to handling IoT and how to manage their business through this, right? And why do we do it? Because obviously IoT is probably one of the best, one of the most interesting markets right now. The majority of venture capital investment in Australia right now is going into the IoT space, right? So this is an area where there's a lot of growth, but as a lot of the presenters talked to you guys about earlier in the day, it is still really the Wild West. There's a lot of technologies out there. There's a lot of things going on. How do you make sense of it? How do you manage your strategy? How do you organize this, right? And we realized that there was a gap in terms of how do you deal with this from a business perspective. This is a business book. It is not it's not a technical book. It deals with technology, but it's designed for a business person, for a senior executive or a senior person who is running a business. You know, either they're developing their own IoT business or they're trying to manage IoT in their business, right? How are they going to handle that strategy, right? Because the issue is, if you think about it, a lot of senior corporate directors, this is what they call the Tricker model around corporate governance. A lot of people spend a lot of time worrying about how they're going to manage their existing business, but they don't spend a lot of time looking into the future and thinking, how is my business going to change with the new technology that comes down the road? And the reality of it is, you know, people talk about the fourth industrial revolution, but IoT is definitely going to be disruptive in terms of business models, structures, right? There will be businesses that will be created out of the IoT, and there will be businesses that will probably end up changing their models dramatically or possibly go out of business as a result. Why do you want to listen to us? We've been doing this for how long now?
Yeah. We're very young looking, but we have more experience than our visual perspective would give.
Yeah, so we've been, between Steve and I, we've been doing this for about 60 years experience. We've worked for organizations like Microsoft, IBM, Hitachi, KPMG Consulting. I am actually attached with the business school. This is what I study as part of my research there is Internet of Things. In fact, a little side advertisement, I'm actually looking for businesses to participate in my case studies for my research, so if you're interested, come talk to me. But we do this for a living, and that's what we're focused on. As I said, a lot of the things that people talked about earlier on today, they talked about what I would refer to as IoT market factors. These are things that IoT creates that will cause businesses to change the way they operate. And a lot of people alluded to these. A lot of the presentations this morning alluded to these, particularly Jenny DeV's presentation where she talked about new business models, right? They talked about a lot of these different factors. So what the book does is it actually goes through these market factors, talks about them, and then as Stephen will explain, gives you a structured way of actually figuring out how you're going to build your strategy to address them. Some of the market factors that we talk about are things like a new focus on outcomes, right? The automotive industry, they're forecasting an 80% reduction in the sale of new cars because if you have an automated car, self-driving car that's connected to the internet, why would you need to buy a car anymore? Why wouldn't you just buy the outcome, which is going from point A to point B? So in the IoT space, there's going to be a lot more focus on outcomes, right? Everything as a service. We saw that in the software industry, right? Everything connected to the web, everything's done as a service. Why not, if you have all these physical objects connected to the internet, why can't you use them as a service as well? There's a lot of impacts in terms of as a service from a business valuation perspective, business revenue, but also in terms of where the risk sets, in terms of who owns the risk for making a solution successful. New revenue models. There is no doubt that as part of IoT, there will be new revenue models generated that people will be able to take advantage of. Monetization of the data stream. Several of the presentations talked about earlier today the fact that data is going to be one of the keys to IoT. How are you going to make money out of this? How are you going to handle this? Right? How are you going to address monetization of the data stream? Increased personalization and context. I get this already. I go into a store and my little Google app comes up and says, oh, we noticed you're in your store, how'd you rate the store, this kind of thing, right? So with IoT, because you have all this data, right, you're going to be able to provide a much more personalized experience. How is your business going to address this? How are you going to respond to that? How are you going to address the fact that the issues with regards to privacy and the fact that all of a sudden now people know more about what you're doing, right? You're going to be able to create new experiences to this information convergence. This is another factor, a market factor you're going to have to address in terms of your business design. And there's another issue that I refer to as social and commercial transparency. For the last 10 years, we've grown used to the fact that if we're on the internet, people know what we're doing, but we figured once we were physically disconnected from the internet, people wouldn't know what we're doing and we'd have privacy. That's no longer the case, right? By some estimates, there's going to be between 70 and 100 devices in the home, right, in the next 3 to 5 years. You get all this technology, all this telemetry going on, what people are doing physically, people are going to be able to track. What does that mean from a privacy perspective, from a commercial liability perspective, when you have this increased visibility about what people are doing? Proactive prediction of real and emergent needs, this idea if you get better data, better analysis, right? These are all market factors, all things that you need to think about in terms of how you design your business, how you address your strategy, how you do your business model, that kind of thing. Another factor is over-the-air updates. Just like you can push new updates to your Windows software or your Android device, if you have these devices that you can push these over-the-air updates to, does this mean that your device lifecycle lengthens out? Right? What does this do to your business model from a business perspective? And ecosystems will be the key to delivery. I absolutely believe that. I've been studying IoT for quite a few years now, and there's not one organization that can provide an end-to-end solution. So you as an organization, if you're delivering IoT solutions, you're going to have to build out your ecosystems to support you as you deliver those solutions. You as a IoT consumer, as an organization, are going to have to deal with a multitude of vendors. How are you going to manage those from a strategy perspective? So these are the things that the book looks at, talks about, and then the strategy develops from that. And I'll hand over to Stephen to talk about the next slides.
So hopefully David's got you excited about the potential of the content, but we recognize that people are not necessarily time-rich enough to read. So we have made sure that the structure is aimed at giving you the information as quickly as possible. So there's basically a short chapter written in normal format, written words that says, here's the situation. And hopefully at the end of that chapter you go, yep, we all agree. You are as smart as we are, or we're all equally stupid, whichever way you read it. The next chapter then hopefully says to you, okay, we're not doing anything because it's not easy, or we're doing something but it's not easy. And that second chapter is all about acknowledging that change is difficult and that there are difficult challenges in this transition. And we share some of those thoughts with you. We now all should be on the same page, which is where we get to the resolution part. And traditionally in books of this nature, beautifully written prose, somewhere buried in a paragraph, is something of interest. And you've got your highlighter pen going, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? We chose to consciously say, let's shortcut that. Let's allow the domain experts to give you the knowledge you need with the notion of smart questions. And I'll talk about that on the next slide. And finally, because it's great to talk about stuff, but what are the real examples? Who's doing it in the real world? So the final chapter is all about those case studies and examples. And thankfully, because we've been sponsored at this event, we've got some great case studies from the sponsors. So the point of the smart questions is, there are 170 of them. If we wrote that as a normal book, this would be hundreds of pages thick, and you would go, no way am I even picking it up. As it is, it's thin. And we've tempted you by putting the agenda at the front, so you have to pick it up. However, there are 170 questions broken into 3 broad categories. First set, are you ready? As the first question I've given as an example there is, if you have lost business because you didn't have an IoT strategy, there is no greater motivation to look at this subject area. After you've got over that, yes, we're motivated, we're doing it for the right reasons, and the organization can come with us, because remember, we're aiming this at the problem shaper, not the problem solver. It's the directors, the CEOs, the people who are trying to think about, I have a challenge, what do I need to think about before I even start solving the problem? We're aiming at that audience. So the next set of questions is like, okay, good. I know why I'm doing it. I reckon the organization will follow me. What the hell's going to change? What are the business models that are going to change? What strategy changes within our business? And so an example might be, are there external parties who need to be notified for compliance purposes? If you're a director, you care. If anybody can find the number for this before I've finished, every question has a number reference, but one of the questions is, do you have a unionized workforce? If the robots really are coming, Wouldn't it be a good idea to start talking to the unions early rather than it being all over the paper and reputational damage done? These are the type of things we're trying to get you, directors in your organisation, to think about. Finally, we get on to, okay, you know why you're doing it, you're motivated, you've got all the change and the thoughts about how your business will change. Your engineers in a white van might need to have different skills now because the IoT device is automatically sensing when it's wrong. We heard about this with the trees. You don't need to send an engineer out to measure the tree now. You send an engineer out to move the tree when it's already fallen onto the road, ideally before it's fallen onto the road because the sensor's saying it's rotting. So your engineers and your business will change. Finally, we get to the section which is the technology section, but in the intro to that it says, yes, this is about technology, but it's not techie. Please read on. And it's broken out into all the questions you need to think about when you partner with people. Are your current technical partners the best ones to be dealing with? They've got a vested interest in selling you what they've always been selling you. Do they have the requisite skills? And a lot of the companies who have the right skills may themselves be startups, which brings another set of risks with them. But you have to balance that away. And we work through, and finally we get to security at the end because it's really important. So that's the structure. We do recognize, though, depending on where you are on your journey, it may be that you are a god in this space and make David and I look stupid, in which case, hopefully, all of the questions will simply reinforce what you know already. And that's fine, because that means we're all quite clever. It may be that there are some of the questions when you go after reading it. See, I did know that. Yes, I did know that, but thank you for reminding me. And that's good. We've offered a service to you. Hopefully, some of the questions will be a reveal. Hopefully, some of them will make you go, that is a good point. And when I said, do you have a unionized workforce, I did look around the room and a few people were going, oh, that's a good point. And now I've said it again, I can see smiles. So hopefully there will be enough reveals that make the book interesting and useful to you. And if it is, if we have achieved our goal, we are going to be, Itan, thank you, helped sponsor this book. Thank you for that. We were going to write it anyway. And we went and had a chat to Itan, and he said, perfect. Two worlds come together. I'm running a conference. You're writing a book. Why don't we launch it at the conference? But we're going to release a public domain version. It'll be up on Amazon in about a month. We are actively soliciting from you feedback, comments, things that you think ought to be included that aren't there. We can't promise to include them all. We've got a narrow window. But having read the book, if you have a little 1 to 2 sentence review that says, oh my God, question 127, that has just changed the whole way I think of something, or this book has made me reevaluate what we're doing, send them to us. Our email addresses are in the book. We will then look at them, and some of them will go in the book, and some of them will go on the website associated with it. There's a couple of week window for you to feed back to us. So we're actively soliciting. And equally, if you have a great case study, particularly if you're not a vendor, sorry vendors, you've all got case studies. They're all very focused on you, as much as you say they're focused on your customer. If you are a customer in the room and you have a great case study about how IoT has fundamentally changed the way you do your business, let us know. We have a template. It's only 2 pages. It's one paragraph that says, where were we? What was the challenge? What did we do about it? And where are we now? 2 pages. Really simple. So, actively soliciting. There are our contact details. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Itan. Enjoy the book. Go and have food.